Hello everyone, welcome to our technical boot camp this quarter. My name is Chris Phillips. Thank you for joining us, and today we are in the AI Experience Center here at D&H that we opened up back in October, and where I'd love to show you a little bit more of this room and all the different toys we have to play with in here today. We're going to have to keep things pretty much focused to what we're talking about today, because today I think is an important topic, because we've been on this track where we're talking about using AI in your day-to-day work life for about 2 years now. And we're at the point where it's kind of time to put up or shut up. Actually show the things we're doing rather than talk about the things that we can do. And I think that's the exciting thing we're here to talk about today, is that we're actually going to be showing some of the processes that D&H has put in place to add AI to our existing workflows, and in some cases, use AI to take over workflows that we no longer wanted to have humans be doing. So we're going to take you through some examples of some of the work that we're doing here today, but I do want to preference this a little bit in that we're not going to be showing you the exact workflows because, quite frankly, there's a lot of sensitive information on there. Obviously, if we were doing this in your business, there would be a lot of sensitive information in your business that you might not be comfortable showing. So some of these workflows have been a little bit sanitized, for lack of a better term, to take out sensitive information, but the structure of the workflows are remaining the same. These workflows also kind of range from a non-automated to completely automated workflow. So I think you'll get a good breadth of a standard agent workflow working all the way up to a completely automated agent workflow as we go through there. Finally, we'll be talking briefly during the demos about how much these workflows will cost and what product line in the M365 world they fall into. So as we go throughout this broadcast, we'll be taking questions, and we'll be answering those questions at the end of the broadcast. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll take care of those questions at the end of the broadcast. But without any further ado, I do want to jump into our first demo. Our first demo, we're going to be going over a less non-automated agent. It's more of a traditional agent. But this agent has knowledge that's updated on a daily basis rather than knowledge that is just stagnant. One of our teams uses this to make sure that they're able to ask the most pertinent questions and get answers that are based on the most up-to-date knowledge. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how you can set that up, and maybe it'll give you an idea of how you can set up a similar agent in your environment. Let's take a look.
So here we are in Copilot Studio, and if you've followed what we've been doing with Copilot Studio and agents for a while, this interface might not be new to you, but if this is the first time you're seeing it, let me tell you a little bit about what you're seeing. This is the place you would go to build out your own custom agents that exist within Copilot 365 chat, Teams, or wherever you decide to deploy those agents. And essentially what you do within Copilot Studio is you give an agent a list of instructions, as you see here, and some general knowledge that it can use to help execute those instructions, and then some tools and triggers if needed to have the agent trigger when a certain event happens, and tools it can use to help accomplish the goals you've set out to it. But this agent is a little bit more specific because in the past, when we wanted to add knowledge to an agent, we would add that knowledge directly to the agent by clicking this Add Knowledge button, and then simply taking all of our information, whether it was a Word document, an Excel file, PDF, what have you, and dragging all that knowledge directly into the agent, which was excellent for most agents because it allowed that agent to become specialized on that knowledge, and that knowledge was static and never needed to change. The issue we had, though, was we had a group that wanted an agent that had its knowledge updated on a regular basis. Essentially, they had 3 documents that they were using. The documents never changed in terms of their placement and their name, but the information within the document changed. So they needed the agent to update every time or whenever the information within the document changed. So we have to take a slightly different approach to have that happen within agents rather than just dragging and dropping that information in. Because if you drag and drop that information in every day when the new reports come out, you have to drag the new reports in and delete the old reports and then wait for the agent to reindex. It's a manual process, and we want this to happen more automatically. So what we did was built this agent. Its instructions are really basic. It's being told it's been giving 3 different documents within a SharePoint folder. The documents have information on back order information, purchase order information, uh, and its job is to basically help answer basic questions about what's within those 3 documents and give recommendations about products that are out of stock or what have you. And then we give it a little bit more detail on what each one of those documents contains. The back order Excel file has all the back order information. The PO report has all the POs and which warehouses they're coming into. And the stocking report has all the items we have in stock and what items or what stock is in which warehouse. So we gave it a really, really basic set of knowledge. But instead of then going into the knowledge and then dragging and dropping and putting all that knowledge in, we pointed it at a SharePoint folder. And that's this SharePoint folder right here. And within that SharePoint folder, we have the 3 documents that that agent's looking for. It's backorder report, the PO report, and the stocking report. And all these reports are kind of structured similarly. That was the one change we had to make, was make sure the output of this all structured the information it needed in a similar fashion. So you'd see that a lot of the titles, like item, warehouse, and quantity, stay the same between the 3 documents. It helps the agent be able to build the connections between these things. But these example documents are really basic. For example, this back order one just shows a couple back orders, the item number that is back ordered, where it's the warehouse it's back ordered in, and its quantity. If you go over to the PO report, again, really basic information. All the item numbers, the warehouses, and the quantity that the PO is of, and which warehouse it's going into, and then a stocking report which has all those item numbers, all the warehouses, and its current level of stock. Again, these are really basic versions of the documents we're using. The documents we're using are much more robust. Instead of having 20 line items, they might have hundreds, if not thousands, of line items. But this kind of gives you an idea of the structure that was created for these things. So that being said, all we did is we put these items to output into this SharePoint file. It updates the document every day, and it does it usually around the end of the day. This one This one updated a little bit more recently because I just opened it. But usually the updates come in around 6 o'clock each day, and that's key because the agent itself does not automatically update the information. It happens on a regular interval, and that's an interval that you can't really change. For our purposes, it wasn't a huge problem because all of these reports come out about the end of the day, and by the time we get to the next morning when this agent would be queried, the agent had gone through and did its refresh and had the most relevant information. So that is the one thing I would want you to keep in mind if you're building an agent that has SharePoint knowledge. That knowledge does not update automatically within the agent. It does take a couple hours for the agent to grab the new information and re-index it, and that's not a cadence that you can customize. It is a cadence that happens automatically in the back end without any user input. So just kind of keep that in mind. As we kind of scroll down this agent, there's one more area I did want to show you when we jump over to Copilot 365 chat that'll be pertinent, and that is here down at the bottom, which is suggested prompts. And this is something I would always recommend you use when you're building an agent out for any user base. And this will basically suggest prompts at the bottom of the agent when you open it up to give an idea to the users of what the best questions are to ask this agent. It doesn't mean these are the only questions you can ask that agent, but when you kind of give some examples of the questions you can ask for an agent, something that the agent's going to be good at, it'll help guide the user ask the right questions to that agent. So it's not asking off-the-wall questions like asking this agent, well, what new product should I order? This isn't about ordering new products, it's about reordering existing product. So customizing the suggested prompts would help with that. And here I have 2 suggested prompts. What items do I need to order, and what items are low in stock? You can kind of change the title and the prompt itself separately. So you can make a shorter title, but you can make the prompt as long as you want. So if the prompt has more details than the title does, you don't need to write out all those details all over again. So if you have a really customized prompt for that agent, you can just write it here once, save it, and then it becomes an available suggested prompt that's always there when they open the agent. Uh, Once you've got this agent completely ready to go, the one thing I would say if you want to deploy this to M365 chat or Teams is to go over here to the Channels tab and go ahead and click on Teams and Copilot Chat, and that will open up a window over here on the right-hand side, which would allow you to deploy those to that environment. I've already done that, so I don't need to do that right now. And then whenever you get done making any changes to that agent, you always want to publish those changes to the agent, which I'm going to go ahead and hit publish right now to just kind of show you how that works. And there you go. The agent's now published and up to date and is available to be accessed through the channels we selected, in this case Teams and M365 Copilot. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that agent is sitting in our M365 Copilot chat. And here you can see it's a basic agent. We've got our 2 prompts that we set out for it in Copilot Studio available, and this is what I was talking about. If you have 2 to 3 prompts that are available to the users at the start, it gives them a good idea of what they can ask this agent. But now I'm going to go ahead and ask it a basic question. I'm going to go, what items do we need to order? And what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and look at the 3 documents that we had, the stocking report, the PO report, and the backorder report. It's going to get all the information for those from those 3 documents and decide what items need to be ordered at this time. And there you go. After a couple seconds, it's spit out its report. It's looked at a couple items and says that even though we have back orders for these 3 items, we don't need to order anymore because we have POs that cover those back orders. But we do have one item, this HTD331HD, that has 7 back orders in the North Warehouse and no POs coming in. So it's telling us, hey, this one you might want to look at ordering. And it also tells us how it got that information, and it got that information by comparing the 3 documents that we gave it as knowledge and its source. So we know this agent is working. So hope this gives you a good idea of what you can do with agents that have its knowledge updated on a regular basis, and ways you can kind of deploy that creatively for your users.
So as you can see, it's pretty easy to set up an agent that has knowledge that's updating on a regular basis. This makes sure that when that agent is queried, the information that it's sending back to the user is always up to date and the most pertinent information that is available. Next, we're going to be setting up more of a semi-autonomous agent. This agent is going to be looking at information as it comes into an inbox and deciding what information needs to have action taken on it by a certain team. So I'll show you how to set up that trigger, and then I'll show you how to qualify what needs to be actioned on and what information can be ignored. So let's take a look at that.
Next up, we're going to build an agent that is working semi-autonomously in our Outlook box to apply more advanced rules that we couldn't make exist in the current rule set that exists within Outlook. To kind of illustrate this, I'm going to kind of look at the current rules that exist within Outlook and kind of show you what their limitations are and how we can overcome them with an agent that's working in our box. So if we wanted to build in some kind of rule that looked at the content of an email and decided if it had to do with returns, then it was moved to a specific folder, the best we could do with the tools that exist right now is just kind of create a rule that has to do with returns, and then add a condition that looks for keywords in the body of the email. And then we can start just listing off keywords that have anything to do with returns, like RMA, or just the word return, or just the word returns. And we can add a bunch of these words into this rule, and then we can basically select an action and go, hey, the action we want to do is, hey, we want to, if any of these words are in the body of the email, we want to move it to a specific folder. The problem is, this doesn't take into effect the context of the email itself. So if the email has nothing to do with returns, but happens to have the word return in it, it's going to trigger this rule and then move that email to the folder that we had selected, regardless of if that's what we wanted to do with that email or not. It's a very binary decision tree. If it has the word in it, it goes to the folder no matter what. And that's not exactly what we wanted to do. So to overcome this, we went and go ahead and built a new agent within Outlook Studio. This agent's instructions are pretty simple. We're telling it is an automated inbox routing assistant. When a new email arrives, it evaluates the content to see if it has to do with a return request. If it does, then execute the move email action, which I'll show you in a second. Only pass along the message ID, which is important for the agent to know which email it's going to be moving, and do not pick or do not choose an email path for it to go. We've provided an email path for it, which I'll show you when we jump into that tool. So it's a really simple set of instructions for this agent. It doesn't take too much time to write out those couple of sentences. And much like the first tool that I showed, we have two different actions for it. We have the trigger. The trigger is very simple. It's when a new email arrives. I've had set up for when a new email arrives in our inbox. I'm going to go ahead and open up this tool in Power Automate. I'll show you real quick that when that new email arrives into my inbox, it sends the information, it sends the body of that email to Copilot Studio. And what happens with that email is it is analyzed, and if it has anything to do with the returns, it uses this move email tool. And when you do set up this move email tool, I did make a couple changes from the default settings. First and foremost, I did change it so ask end user before running is set to no, because I don't want the agent to ask the end user whether to run this rule or not. Based on the instructions we have for it, we're pretty clear, and we'll kind of test this out in a second to make sure whether the agent's clear enough that it should move something or it shouldn't move anything. But I don't want it to ask the user every time whether it should move that email itself. I also changed the end user, the credentials that it uses from end user to the maker provided credentials, and that's just making sure it's using my credentials, not the person that happens to be running it, because I'm going to be the person that's running this in my box. If you're creating a rule that's going to be ran in someone else's box, you would use end user credentials, but if it's for yourself, make it the maker provided credentials. Moving down to inputs, we can see that message ID is going to be dynamically filled by the AI. As we stated in the instructions, it needs to grab that message ID. When we test the agent, we'll kind of show that message ID being grabbed. And in the folder, instead of having that dynamically filled by the AI, we're going to have a custom value, and go ahead, all you have to do is go ahead and click on this folder, and it will bring up your file tree within Outlook, and then you can select the appropriate folder that you want all the emails moved to. And that's the end of the setup for this. I'm going to go back to the main page, and we're going to kind of show this agent now in action. I do have a couple triggers that have built up for this thing for the testing of this. So I'm going to go over here in our test our agent, hit these three little dots, and it's going to bring up a test trigger, and we're going to test the when a new email arrives trigger. And I know this first trigger here at 12:02 has nothing to do with returns, but I want to make sure that the logic within the instructions aren't going to inadvertently trigger the move action. So we're going to head and test this email, and it's going to look at the email, and it's going to decide, hey, this email content is internal communications about company news, events, and announcements. Does not mention anything about a return request or related actions. Therefore, no movement is required, and no further action is needed. So it looked at the email, decided, hey, has nothing to do with returns. Therefore, I am going to do nothing with it, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want the agent to do. But what about an email that does have something to do with returns? So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to kind of create a new test session here. I'm going to go ahead and select a different trigger. And I do know this 1149 trigger here did have something to do with returns. So I'm going to start that trigger. And now the agent's going to go, hey, this did have something to do with returns. This action needs to be done because the email was identified as a return request, and given the instructions, it has moved it to the appropriate folder, providing only the message ID parameters. And there you can see it found the message ID and it provided that message ID back to this tool. And it's gone ahead and moved that email using the tool, and it's completed the action. So it looked at the email, decided it did have to do with returns, and it moved it appropriately. So this agent now is functioning as we intended, and it'll now kind of sit in the background of my inbox. And anytime anything it does have to do with returns, it'll automatically move those emails to the folder that I designated for it.
So there you can see a semi-autonomous agent that's constantly working in the background, trying to decide whether information that's coming into an inbox needs to be actioned on or not. What about a fully autonomous agent that's taking action on literally everything that's coming through? That's what I'm going to show you next. And this is where we start to expand out from Copilot Studio into more Power Automate flows. These flows can be very much customized to exactly what your customer needs. Now, I will say these flows also do require a little bit more credits in terms of what you're actually going to be using. And we'll kind of walk through what's going to actually require Copilot credits as we go through the demo. But in this case, this is actually a flow that we've been using here at D&H to actually remove workload from actual humans and put that directly on an AI, so we don't have humans doing this manual work. So we'll show you a little bit about the work, and we'll show you how the agent is autonomously doing that work for humans now. So let's jump into Power Automate this time, and we'll take a look at that.
So there are two ways of going about building a fully autonomous agent. The first is incredibly similar to the agent we just built, so I'm going to use that agent as an example. In Copilot Studios, if you build out your agent, you give it a trigger like we did when a new email arrives, and then you give it a bunch of tools and instructions. Basically, that agent can, if you don't put any qualifications that stops it from acting on everything that triggers it, it will work on every action that triggers it. Uh, However, where this method kind of falls short is this method works on orchestration. And what orchestration is, if I go over to here, top right in the settings, you can see the first option within the settings is agent orchestration. And it's asking use generative AI orchestration for your agent's responses. And that basically means the agent is going to decide how it uses all the tools that you've given it and how it interprets the instructions every time that the agent is triggered. So you may have instances where the agent decides to only use 2 or 3 of the 5 tools you've given it, or might interpret your instructions differently based on how the trigger comes into it. It's not uh, completely reliable because you're relying on the agent to act in a predictable manner, and unfortunately, that's not necessarily going to happen. It's going to sometimes orchestrate a little bit differently, and you might get results that are a little bit off from what you're looking for. But to kind of circumvent that, to make sure you're getting your results in a structured manner, the way you want it every single time, you can actually go ahead and, instead of building this agent within Copilot Studio, you can build an agent within Power Automate. To do that, what you're going to do is click on the little plus button in the Create and click an automated cloud flow. I'm going to skip this window here to bring us to our creation tree here. And in the add trigger, I'm going to add new email. And it's going to be when a new email arrives, you want to make sure you use that Office 365 Outlook, because that is the one for business. And basically now when a new email arrives in my inbox, and I can change that to any of the folders in my inbox if I have rules that moves emails when they arrive, it will trigger this agent. So what can I do from there? The first thing I want to do is actually remove all the HTML code out of the actual email to make it a little bit easier for the AI prompt that I'm about to give it to be able to read that email. So I'm going to go ahead and put HTML to text in an action field, and I'm going to go ahead and add this HTML to text action. And in the content here, I'm going to click this little lightning bolt and add the body of the email to the content. So it's going to take the body of the email, rip out the HTML, and it's going to spit back out just the text. Next, I'm going to add some AI processing to this flow. So I'm going to hit the plus button, and the tool I'm looking for, the action I'm looking for, is run a prompt. If you need to type in run a prompt, if it doesn't come up immediately, that's the one I'm looking for. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to go ahead and build a new prompt. And from here, it could look a little bit daunting, but it actually is kind of easy because down here on the left, you can get started with Copilot, and you can write in a description of how you want the prompt to interact with the data you're going to give it. I know I'm going to give it the body of an email, so that's the data I'm giving it. And what I want the prompt to do, the AI to do, is I'm going to copy and paste a prompt I already have, is analyze the content of the email and output a JSON file. And I'll show you what a JSON file is in a second. That contains the name of the original person making the request, email, vendors recommended, and approximately how much that is worth. So I'm going to let Copilot actually build this prompt for me so I don't have to build the prompt myself. So you have AI building prompts for other AI to use. But within a couple seconds, it's already built a prompt for me that I can use. I can begin testing with. I'm going to go ahead and keep that. And instead of providing a document, because here it's asking for me to upload a sample document, I am going to be giving it the body of that email, which is just going to be text because I translated that HTML to text. And I'm going to change the name to email. So when we go back into Power Automate, we know exactly what this is labeled. And I have a sample email, which is important for us to be able to actually start to get a output modeled that I'm going to have to put into this little window here. So I'm going to give it a sample email, and I'm going to hit test. And it's going to run our prompt based off of the sample email. And then you can see over here on the right-hand side, it created a JSON file. This is basically a file that's easy for Power Automate to be able to read and then parse out the individual components of what we are asking the prompt to do. So it grabbed the person's name, their email address, 3 possible vendors that are part of it, and the approximate value is quantity 3 of that item. This is okay, but it's not exactly what I want. So let's make a couple changes to it. First and foremost, I don't want these vendors to come up in a list. I kind of just want it as a text string. Text strings are easy to work with, so I'm going to just change this that the doesn't come across as an array. I want to come across as a text string. So it'll come across as a string and not an array. Secondly, I kind of need a summary of this email as well. So I can actually just add instructions into this. I'm going to add an instruction here that adds a 1 to 2 sentence summary of the request and what item was recommended. And I can also then ask it to then output the summary as well for me. So I'm going to go, hey, output the summary as well. So now I've asked it to do this as a string, and now I'm asking it to also include a summary as well. And there you go. It's now changed the recommended vendors to a string of text, and it's also added a summary of that email chain as well. That's a good start, but we can always add more information as we go back in here. We'll go ahead and save this real quick. We'll go back out to Power Automate, and we'll do the final step of this demo. So now that we're back out in Power Automate, I'm going to add the body of that email into the email of the prompt. So it's being fed that HTML to text, that plain text from the body of the email. So now every time a new email arrives, it is translated from HTML to text and given to the prompt. What can we do with it from there? Well, I'm just going to want to grab all that information and store it in an Excel file. There's obviously other things you can do, but I think this will be the best way to illustrate what it can do. So I'm going to go ahead and click the plus button and click Excel Online, and I'm going to add a row to a table. And I'm going to go into a SharePoint site that we have, and I'm going to go find the Excel file that we're going to be demoing for. So I've got this demo here, this Excel file. And when I click on that file, it's going to pull up all the tables that are within that file. So I'm going to hit table 1. And when I do that, it actually starts to pull under the advanced parameters all of these different categories here. And these are categories that go along with the headers at the top of the columns of this table. So I have a date column, a name, email, vendor, summary, and estimated size. I'm going to click on all of those, and it opens up windows where I can start inputting information. For the date, instead of grabbing that from the AI prompt, I'm just going to grab that directly from the email. So I can go down here and under the Thunder, new email arrives. I can go ahead and click received time. And then under the name, I can click on that little lightning bolt. And then from the AI prompt, I can then show all of the results from that prompt. And these are all the categories that JSON file created. So I can grab requested name, requested email, recommended vendors. I can grab that summary, and then I can grab the opportunity value and put it in the estimated size here. So now, every time this runs, it's going to be translated to text, ran through that AI prompt, and then the results of that prompt are going to be spit out into this Excel file. And you can kind of already see what that looks like. It grabs the date, the name that we saw, the email that we saw, the vendors, that summary, and an estimated size as well. So you can kind of start to see just how powerful this becomes, because then I can start to add additional action items. If I want to, if a certain vendor's talked about, I can add an action that sends a message in Teams to a specific group. If a specific opportunity is over a certain dollar amount, I can have it send off an email to the sales rep, letting them know that that has happened. There's a variety of different actions you can take from there. And again, under the AI agents that we have that are using a similar flow, our flows get very, very complicated. I'd love to show you them, but that would be might be a little bit too much information for you just today. So this is just a quick snippet of the information or the things you can do when you're building out an agent in Power Automate. With that, I'm going to kind of put this demo to the end, and we're going to kind of move on to the end of this this training here.
Well, there you have it. There's 3 different agent workflows that you can kind of take bits and pieces of from what you've seen today and maybe start to apply in your environment. Again, things that you might want to consider is how much agent workflows are going to cost when you start moving them from semi-automated to completely automated, and how you can mitigate those costs by using larger or smaller models rather than larger models, because those are going to take less credits to operate as you go through the day-to-day workflow. But if you have any questions about that, questions about how much a workflow might end up costing someone, questions about how to set up these workflows in an environment that might be a little bit more constrictive, or just any general questions you might have about what you've seen today, we'll be taking questions now in a Q&A. If you're seeing this as a pre-recorded, you can go ahead and email us, techsolutions@dnh.com. We're happy to answer any of these questions. But I do want to thank you guys for joining us today and kind of seeing a little bit behind the scenes of how we're using AI in our day-to-day life here in D&H, and I hope it has inspired you to start to find processes in your guys' customers' businesses where you can apply AI in their day-to-day business and make things run a little bit more smoothly and take a little bit more work off of the people so they can do some things that are a little bit more fun. But thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Can't wait to be able to show you guys this space in a little bit more detail. Hopefully that's what we'll be doing next, but we'll see what's happening next time when we get there. Thanks.
I'm Chris Phillips. Thank you so much for joining us here today. To help handle the Q&A. Bill, how's it going?
Pretty good. We're excited to talk about Copilot.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining us for that technical demo. I know it was long. You guys probably had a bunch of questions that happened throughout that presentation. So we're going to take a moment right now and answer those questions for you guys. Bill, you want to kick things off?
Yeah, I'll go through the questions and Chris will start answering them. I'll chime in where I need to,
Yeah.
but please drop questions in the Q&A box and we will try to get to them.
Yep.
So first question that we got is, how do I access Copilot Studio? And that actually popped up a couple times when we were watching that video.
That's a great question. And we were actually talking about that while the video was happening as well, because you're accessing it a little different way than I'm accessing it. So there's two ways to do it. The way that I was showed in the actual presentation was going directly to Copilot Studio, copilotstudio.com. I think it's also Microsoft.copilotstudio.com as well. Both of them will get you there. If you already have a M365 Copilot license and you go to that website and log in, you should have access to Copilot Studio immediately. You can begin building agents out as long as it's not something that's restricted by your domain right now. So if you've got that license already, you can go to that website and begin building. The second way to do it is through the M365 chat. If you have the access, if you have agent access as well, if you click new agent, it'll bring up the new agent interface where you can start to kind of build out a basic agent without going fully into Studio. And then there's a button to go completely into Studio there. So that's the two ways to do it. I prefer going in the advanced way to Studio, but if you want to do something real basic, you can do it in M365 chat as well.
Yeah, and I think the directly in those two interfaces, you're kind of limited by feature set.
Yes.
I think the one in the M365 Copilot app is called Agent Builder.
Yeah.
And I think that's just you kind of, out of everything we saw there, you give it its directions, you give it data sources, there might be one or two other toggles, but you don't get everything that's in Copilot.
I've played with that once or twice, very briefly at the beginning. I can almost say for 100% certainty that if you start an agent in that way, then go to Copilot Studio, that agent will show up and then you can dive into more
Get the bigger features. Got it. Okay. Next question we got is, what do some of the automated agents cost per month?
That's a great question because and really the answer is it depends. As a lot of this stuff is kind of labeled, it depends. So the first two agents that I showed, the one that's that's just working off the SharePoint data, and the one that's a more advanced version of Outlook rules, those, as long as you have that M365 Copilot license, shouldn't consume any additional Copilot credits and shouldn't cost anything additional past the cost of that license. When you get into building out more structured flows in Power Automate, where you adding the AI builder into a Power Automate flow, that's where it's going to start to cost you Copilot credits. The amount of credits it's going to cost you varies on the model that you use and the amount of times that it's run. So if you can build your flow to not use the AI unless it's absolutely necessary and not use a model that is, overkill for it, you can kind of keep your credit usage to an absolute minimum. An example would be, we do have a flow that I'm running in a more orchestrated fashion on Power Automate within our D&H tenant, and it is triggered about, I think, 150 times a day. And the default number of kind of credits you get seeded on a monthly basis, I haven't exceeded those yet.
Okay.
So it allowed me to run it about 150 times a day. But again, I'm using like GPT-4 mini.
Right.
Because all I'm doing is asking it one basic question about the what's triggering it. Like, hey, just give me a brief summary of it. And is this something that we need to engage with? Yes, no. And I think it doesn't really take very much to do that.
I mean, the takeaway there, I think, is that, with the license, obviously the costs are mostly included as long as you work within that framework of, like, if you're doing Microsoft official actions on behalf of yourself, you can kind of get away with this.
And you can get, and there's a significantly
high ceiling amount of stuff you can do
Right.
without getting into an area where you start consuming credits on a regular basis. And this, again, is something we discussed prior to coming on the air. If you get into a tool that would consume credits within Power Automate or Copilot Studio, it will warn you. It'll go, hey, this will consume credits. Furthermore, it'll also visualize how many credits you're using on the dashboard for you as well. I mean, I've got 5 agents that are running. Some of them are triggered once every 2 minutes during a workday. I mean, we're talking about 500 triggers a day between the 5 agents. Every day, 0 on the Copilot credits used every day. So, there's a lot you can do.
All right, so there's a couple of questions that tie into that. So I'm just going to rattle them off
Go
quick,
ahead.
so I think we can address a bunch of them. So does every user have to have Copilot Studio to use an agent? And in addition to that, how are the credits same as tokens? Because I know with a lot of language models you hear about token
Right.
usage. So I think that it's worth kind of clarifying Microsoft's terminology for usage as opposed to what they might.
I'll go to the first one first. Does every user need Copilot Studio or M365 Copilot to use a Copilot Studio agent? The broad answer is yes. If you have an agent similar to the first one I showed, where it's your standard chat bot and you're asking questions about specific knowledge, if you want to use that agent without consuming credits, you would need to have a Copilot license, M365 Copilot license. If you don't have a Copilot M365 license and it's enabled, you can still use that agent, but then it will cost credits every time you use that agent. So the answer to that is, if you have people that want to use those agents, just get them the license. However, we have, I kind of showed in the demo that one of my agents is triggered by when an email arrives in an inbox. Well, if that email arrives in a shared inbox, only the person that sets up that trigger needs to have Copilot Studio for it to not consume any credits. But if anyone else in that shared box doesn't have Copilot Studio and doesn't have Copilot 365, and they trigger that agent, it's still not going to cost any credits because I was the one that set it up,
Right.
not them. So there's some ways to get around it if you're doing like these automated triggers. Just know that the person that set it up is the person that dictates how many credits are used. Now on the token front, tokens are more of a general term that is used by pretty much every AI model. You probably turn on the news and hear newscasters talk about token usage and how important it is to monitor token usage, because that's how much actual compute is being used. In a simple term, keeping the amount of tokens you use low is important to keep the cost down if you're using an agent that is going to consume credits. And you can do that in a variety of different ways. You can do that by not having very highly sophisticated knowledge bases or prompts or information that's analyzing, or using a smaller language model like GPT-4 Mini. But if you use the same information and go up to GPT-5 or GPT-5 Pro with analytics, the amount of tokens, even though you haven't changed any data, you've changed the model, the number of tokens go up, and then the cost goes up. We do have a video that we'll show. We'll send you guys out when we put this video on demand, because literally after we got done recording this demo, Microsoft did an update to to Power Automate to show you the number of tokens you could be using and the number of credits it will be using in the preview screen when you're building out those flows. So I want to be able to show that to you guys as well, so you'll see that on demand. But generally speaking, they're not directly tied together, but they loosely are.
Right. The concept is the same. The name is different. All right. So the number one question we've been asked the most is if there's going to be a recording of this session available. Yes. Yeah. In the follow-up email, we'll make sure a link goes out. It'll include the original pre-recording plus this Q&A session and any resources that maybe come out from us talking.
Yeah. And the great thing is, if you want to watch this video again and kind of just rebuild this agent in your own environment, I would encourage you to A, do that, but then B, explore all the tools you can use, have the agent use, and explore all the triggers, and then start to think about, well, how can I change this to make it work within my working environment? Because that's all you and I have been doing when we're building agents, is like, well, if I can make it do this, can I make it do this?
Yeah.
And it just keeps opening new doors and new avenues.
All right. These next two questions are kind of related, so we'll see if we can get them at the same time.
Sure.
How do you share agents with other users in your org, and how can agents be built for customers?
So sharing within your org, that is, if you're sharing just the output of the agent functioning, you can publish that to Teams, you can publish it to M365 chat, you can publish it directly to a channel within Teams, and that will go to either one or multiple users, depending on how you share it. It's mostly easy. What was the second question?
The second question was, how would you share with customers?
How would you share it with customers? Okay, so that's where I'm gonna start to pump the brakes on you a little bit. And the reason why I pump the brakes on that a little bit is because once you share it to a customer, then you're going to be accruing costs because you're sharing it to an outside source, and that outside source can consume as many credits as they can go through with very little limitations. There's not really great limitations in place in Copilot Studio right now to say, hey, after 5 uses, 10 uses, 15 uses, shut them down.
I think I misrepresented that question.
Okay.
How can you build an agent for a customer?
Okay,
So,
how
for
you can
example,
build it.
if a customer came to you and said, you're the expert and I would like for you to build an agent for us to deploy,
Cool.
what are the options?
So there are some options. You can build it within your own tenant, within your domain, and then export that to your customer's tenant domain. That process is a little bit convoluted. It's not simple. Maybe I can go through a video demo showing that process off because it's a little bit difficult. Same thing when you're trying to move an agent from one user to another. Ultimately, I've got 5 agents right now that are running on the D&H domain. I would like to move those 5 agents to, they work for 5 different teams. I want to be able to move those agents within each team. Like hey, now that I've built it, I want to give it to you, and now you guys manage it. It's the same process. You export it from one user, you import it to another user. We'll talk about building a demo so we can do that process for you guys. That's a really good question there.
Okay, so the next two, you guys are doing a great job asking questions that are like related right next to one another. So 2 questions again. Can you create an agent to interact with Autotask or let's say any third-party data source? And also, can Copilot Studios do something like publish a REST API for use in other apps?
Not. Okay, so the first one of any third-party source, there are literally hundreds of third-party sources that can be used within Copilot Studio. If you don't have access to Copilot Studio, but you have like an M365 license, I would say go to Power Automate and look at all of the tools that are in Power Automate and all the triggers that are in Power Automate, because they're the exact same ones that are in Copilot Studio.
I think they're called connectors, right?
Connectors.
Third-party connectors is like the term Microsoft uses.
That's the one they use. And if you see that connector within Power Automate, that connector exists within Copilot Studio as well. So if you want a free way to kind of preview that or check it out, by all means, do that. That's the first way to do it. The second question is, sorry.
Publishing REST APIs.
You can. I haven't gotten into that yet. It would involve doing like an HTTP, like a GET query or a REST query. I briefly did that in the past. Honestly, we were doing it an HTTP request to Outlook to get the categories that were in an email once it had been triggered. And then we did a bunch of agent stuff. And then we updated the categories on that email. So the email would come in, it would read all the contents of the email, then it would update the categories based on the content of the email, and then move them within the Outlook folder. So we basically taken the job of someone that was like, okay, an email comes in, now I got to categorize it and move it to the right team. We had an AI doing that for a little bit, and that worked awesome. I will say though, because it was using some sophisticated stuff, it used a ton of credits, and we had to pull back from that.
I remember that.
There was a point where it's like, I feel like I may have used about $500,000 worth of credits. It wasn't, but it was a lot.
At the time, it could have been.
It could have been.
How much does the credit cost?
Right.
Nobody
so
knows.
there are ways to do it. Yes.
All right. Next couple of questions, and I'll take this one. Does Microsoft offer interactive demo training platform for learning and evaluation? So this is one of the tough things that Microsoft has eased this a little bit. There's still not a great answer. At D&H, we just launched our own demo tenant where we have some devices that have some like walkthrough demos available. But the big problem is when Copilot for M365 first launched, it was a year commitment and it was $30 a month no matter what. With some recent changes to the pricing models, you can now buy Copilot in the month for the month. So what that means is you can now take 3 months. Your exposure and your ability to demo it is a lot easier when you can just buy a month of Copilot for M365. Microsoft does have what they call immersion briefings. And so if you're interested in those, you'll be able to reach out to me after the call. That allows us to bring some customers into a curated demo environment for a set period of time, walk through some demos. I will say that the environment is hosted on a virtual machine through the web and that we've had mixed reviews about them. But I think that as long as the person who's leading that immersion experience is able to work through that and point out the real value of what you're trying to show off with the feature set, that can be an effective tool as well. So we're working D&H on bringing custom options. Microsoft has the Copilot immersion briefings and the ability to buy Copilot month to month, increases your ability to be able to set up the environment and show that off.
All right, I'm gonna jump in to let you read first and more questions. Question I'm answering right now is how is credits purchased and used? That is a great question because it is also another question that we ran into as we tried to start rolling these processes out in our own environment. And I'm glad to be able to answer that question because it kind of gives me the ability to give you a little bit of warning about what you can expect. So credits are purchased on a tenant basis. So if you can either do it in two ways. You can buy them as a $200 package for like 200,000 credits, or you can do pay as you go. They really kind of want you to do pay as you go, and I can kind of understand why. That package of credits you purchase does not roll over month to month. So if you buy 200 credits and you don't use it at the end of the month, they disappear. Or $200 worth of credits and you don't use them all, they disappear. So they really want you to do pay as you go. Here's where the problem lies. We were going to set it up in a fashion where we had a general idea of how many credits we're going to use, and we were just going to do the pay as you go. The problem is, D&H, we're a large organization, and I'm sure that you have customers out there at a large organization. Our little small section of the organization, we're going to be using those credits. There was no way from a standpoint of our tenant to lock down those credits to only be used by our little group. Basically, any group at D&H could use those credits because we purchased them at the tenant level, not at the user level. So that's a little bit of a warning to you. If you've got a group within a larger group and they want to use credits, just know if you purchase those credits for that smaller group, they're available to everyone. And if another group starts using those credits without that smaller group knowing, it becomes a problem. There are definitely dashboards in place, both on Power Automate, the Admin Console. There's multiple dashboards to monitor the amount of credits that you're being used. It updates pretty quickly. I think it's about every 5 minutes it was giving me up-to-date information. So you can do a pretty good job of monitoring it, but that's the one thing to look out for. So you can purchase them in bulk or pay as you go, but you also just have to be worried about the fact that you purchase that at a tenant level, not a user level.
Right. We're going to move on to the next question. This is a good one. They asked, for you, because you're building agents and I am like a citizen developer where I've also tried to develop my own agents. Mm-hmm. If you're trying something complex, the question is essentially, if it's got to run through Copilot Studio and it's got to include Power Platform, how valuable do you find Copilot in helping with that? And also, what are your other resources for that? And I will state for myself, I found recently, if you haven't noticed, and hopefully it's set up if you have your M365 license, the ability to switch to Opus instead of the GPT models.
Yes.
Opus does seem to get, it seems like it's a lot more business oriented and result oriented and maybe even like program oriented. It works logically when I ask it questions. And so I've had better experience getting coding using that as the model. Because I've used Copilot to ask how to build Copilot, which is funny, like agents.
Yeah, I'm not here to trash other models. If you use GPT and you're fine with it, great. But I can tell you right now, Microsoft had GPT for how many how many years now? We're almost at 2-3 years within Copilot Studio. There are things that I've been able to do with Claude versus ChatGPT that I couldn't do. Like those models just work better than GPT for business cases. So take that information however you want to, but all those models are available. You can pick whatever one you want. You can run a test, pick another model, run a test, compare them side by side, pick what you want to use.
All right, there's a couple, we don't have a whole lot more time left, so we're gonna find if there's one or two more of these. This is an interesting question that I believe I know the answer to, so I'm gonna take a crack at it, so we'll see if you know. And this is a great question. So if you have a customer who is setting themselves up for pay-as-you-go for Copilot credits, and let's say that they have an agent that is just running through credits.
Right.
The question there becomes the liability of that. If you have a customer who enables pay-as-you-go, I believe that that's considered almost an Azure expense. And so that liability would roll up. So if you have a customer that goes absolutely crazy using credits, that bill is going to come to us and then go to you for you to pass on to the customer. So that is something to consider, that as you have these conversations with your partners about agent use and making sure the payment's set up, there is definitely some value there in ensuring that they understand these guardrails and that the agents they're rolling out are following a lot of these responsible practices. Is
that would be accurate in monitoring the credit usage on a daily basis, hour by hour in some cases, is important. There are dashboards you can set up and use. Please utilize them.
All right, we have a couple. One quick question we can answer here: is there a D&H agent like Digital Bridge that VARs can use to search for D&H inventory? There's nothing to announce today, but I can tell you that we are certainly looking at how we can integrate these kinds of processes and solutions to make our day-to-day better.
And I know we don't have a ton of time, but I'm gonna stress this because I've been at D&H here for like almost 16 years at this point. The most important thing since I've been working here at D&H is our relationship with you guys. And I never want to put that relationship in a situation where an AI robot gets between us and you. It's one of the things that I've told to our teams and everyone above us. Hey, we never want to make sure that you guys can't get to us, that you're talking to a robot before you get to us. That's not the way we do business here at D&H. It's absolutely not the way we do business. But with that being said, there are avenues to be able to have some assistance on the site without interfering with that one-to-one relationship. So I think that's an important thing to mention to you guys as our customers. And it's something that you guys to think about when you're dealing with your customers. Nobody wants to deal with robots directly. Nobody. So there are certainly different ways you can use these processes. But yeah, I just wanted to expand on that because I think it's something I feel very passionate about as I'm building these agents out, where they're best suited to work.
Yes. All right. Rapid fire questions to close it out. Here we go. Do we have sample budgets for small businesses?
Not really. No. We can look into that for a future one.
All right. Is Apple Intelligence better than Microsoft?
There's not much that is worse than Apple Intelligence right now. And I say that as an iPhone user and an Apple Watch. And it's just, it's not there yet.
I actually think they were forced to remove that from their advertising.
I'm fairly certain next week, whenever they do their worldwide conference, you're going to hear some things about Google from them.
Yeah. Okay. If customer data is on in-house servers, can Copilot work?
Say that one more time.
If customer data lives on in-house servers, how can Copilot work with that?
You can set it up to access that information directly. Yes. You can also set up the Copilot agents now to access in-house processing rather than cloud processing. You can have it process on your internal servers.
Okay.
That's way more complicated. We don't have time to get into that.
Two more questions. Here we go. I have a Copilot Studio license and I'm redeeming another through my solutions partner benefit. Do I only need one? I'll jump in because that question is kind of close to where I live on day to day. So to build agents, Copilot Studio is an entitlement of the M365 for Copilot SKU. So if you're paying for that, whether through a business bundle or you're licensing that individually, you have access to Copilot Studio. If you don't, you can use that license to create the agent, and then the people in your organization do not need Copilot Studio to access that agent, but you will run into, are they allowed to use it without incurring costs? So to answer your question, you only need the Copilot Studio license to build the agent. You can deploy them and run them, but there's going to be costs associated with that. So it's probably best at looking at how do you get Copilot for M365 deployed to your team. Last question. What services does D&H have and offer that we can resell for AI agent creation, AI workshops, and AI workload best practices?
Stay tuned.
That's correct. I will say we're working on a ton of content for that. Obviously, agents are a very valuable way. And right now, Chris was talking about it, just seems like the value is there because you are, for $30 a user a month at most, allowed a lot of compute power for AI.
We have 900, 800 users with that license here at D&H. And I think we use less than 1% of the capability.
Yeah.
There's so much ceiling. There's so much room to go.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today.
Cool. That was a ton of questions. I'm so glad I brought you on to help that. I would not have been able to manage that by myself. Thank you guys so much for all your questions. If you didn't get your question answered, or you come up with a question later tonight, don't hesitate to reach out to us, techsolutions@dnh.com. I'll be more than happy to answer those questions. If you have any ideas for future videos you want to see, I think that how to export an agent to a different user, I think that's a great example of that. Let us know. We're happy to build out that content and send it out to you. In fact, like I said, there'll be an additional piece of content at the end of this broadcast when we send out the on-demand link. We'll have a new video as well, going over some recent changes in Copilot.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.